Well, hello to anyone who has decided to join me on this live stream. I know it's an impromptu live stream, but if you will look at the latest video that I put up about my live stream times, I have said that I will just be doing them in this way because I just feel that the live stream flows a lot better when it is an impromptu one, when I have the information, I've put it all together and I'm ready to bring it to you guys, rather than feeling I have to have all the information ready at a particular time every day, every week. And sometimes it takes quite a bit to get all of this information together. Just like this live stream has taken me a couple of days actually to collate all of this different information. So this is going to be a pretty long live stream. I can assure you that we're going to at least need 2 hours to get through all of the information that I have got here that I want to bring you guys today, because there are so many changes, tangible changes now happening on our planet and in our atmosphere and with the sun and even with the galactic core, that it is almost impossible to ignore all of these changes that we're seeing. So in today's live stream, we're going to cover how the Inuits were right and the Earth has shifted on its axis. We're going to cover new mapping of hotspot magma intrusions under the oceans. And this actually connects to my previous live stream where I show how it's the magma intrusions underneath the ocean that is causing El Nino. Okay, so the weather conditions, the atmospheric conditions in which they use to call an El Nino, because certain conditions have been met, are actually being produced by elevated volcanic activity under our oceans. And I went on to show this with absolute evidence that it is not the atmosphere that is causing the El Nino conditions, but rather it is the volcanic activity underneath our oceans which is causing the heating of the oceans to produce these atmospheric conditions. And so this article actually just goes on to further confirm that it is these magma intrusions that are creating these atmospheric conditions. We're also going to discuss the air glow that is now being observed in Colorado. Interstellar clouds near the galactic center have become 1 million times brighter. Scientists say cosmic rays are causing earthquakes, and detecting solar flare disturbances to our ionosphere with radio waves and the Doppler effect. And lastly, and I thought we'd finish off the live stream with a bit of a laugh, new research links climate change to smaller brain size in humans. So we'll leave that one to last because I find that quite amusing. But let's start with the Inuits were right. The Earth has shifted on its axis. Now, I find this really interesting, and any of you guys that have followed my channel since 2011 or have actually been observing all of the changes and all of the events taking place since 2011 and 2012 will know that back then there was a video about the Inuits saying that the sun was now rising in a different place on the horizon, that they were seeing tangible changes of where the sun was rising and how it was causing the changes in their weather patterns because there was more sunlight and more heat. And I remember that anybody that believed the Inuits and that was also making similar observations and basically also identifying that the sun had changed position were called tinfoil hatters, were called crazy. And so now these people are the idiots, because these people are the ones that listen to their white coat gods, and it's only, 10, 12 years later that their white coat gods have decided to admit that the earth has actually tilted, has changed its tilt. Okay, the axis has changed. And it's not just a little bit, guys, that we're talking about here. We're talking about 31.5 inches. And that is a huge change. And the reason that I think that they're putting this information out now is that it's continued to change. And it's continued to move on its axis to the point where normies, the sheeps, are also identifying this, because I've actually had people in my inner circle say to me that they have noticed that the sun is no longer in the same position as it was last year. And so I was given a example by someone who is not following any of this information, was not even aware of the article that is now doing the rounds on the internet. Because remember, a lot of these articles that are circulated on Google News and on the internet are not actually reported in the nightly news on the television. Okay, two completely different realms. You've got Google News and articles that are circulated on the internet, and then you've got the news that the journalists report every night for the nightly news for all the normies and the sheeps, and rarely do the two ever connect. Okay, so this information is now, I think, being published. Now, it was published in 2021, and we're going to look at what they were publishing back in 2021 about this change in the Earth's tilt. And back in 2021, they were blaming the melting of the glaciers. Nowhere was it mentioned that it was the pumping of groundwater or the displacement of groundwater that was causing the Earth's axis to change. Okay, so that's just the new narrative that they're pushing, because they can no longer hide these changes. Now, they're saying from 1993 to 2010 that the measured change was 31.5 inches or 80 centimetres. They don't give any further data of how much it has shifted from 2010 to 2023. And don't you find it interesting that it's taken them this long to present this information publicly? So what else are they hiding from us? Because I actually see this all the time with these white coats, that they actually see this data years before they actually start to publish it. Like, events happen and they say things like, oh, there was this massive, geomagnetic storm, and it brought down, all of these different parts of the grid, and it was such a close call. And then they're telling you about the event that happened 5 years prior. They're just letting us know how close we came to all of our grids completely coming down, Now, I'm just giving one example. It happens often. Okay, that's just one example I've seen where they bring you information 5 years after it's, actually happened, and then they tell us how lucky we were, So what are they hiding from? What's happening right now that they are hiding from us? What data are they seeing right now that we have to wait another 5 or 10 years before they actually release this data to the public? Because I can tell you that the information that we're getting now, the data that we're actually seeing now in relation to the magma plumes, in relation to the air glow that was just observed in Colorado, in relation to the ionosphere being the hottest it's ever been in decades, if not in measured history, of measuring the ionosphere, and the correlation that has now to every time that we see a solar flare, even the smallest little difference and change in the solar flux, it's absolutely being registered in our ionosphere in a huge way. They're only reporting on all of this now because they can't hide it from us anymore. Okay. We're only seeing this now because they can't hide it from us anymore. So we have to actually start taking these observations into our own hands. So from 1993 to 2010, they're saying that the Earth's tilt changed by 31.5 inches, right? And then the Inuit video, the video about the Inuits who were actually saying that they had seen the sun change on the horizon, came out in 2011. Okay. And nowhere did the scientists release this information publicly. And as I said, in fact, anybody who believed the Inuits and was discussing that information about the Inuits was called crazy. I mean, even believing that the planet's climate, or Earth rather, or that the Earth's weather was shifting or changing. Even actually doing videos about changes in the weather patterns, changes in, the temperature anomalies that we were experiencing, the storms, the different weather patterns. Anyone who was reporting on that, i.e. myself, was called crazy, was called a tinfoil hatter. And yet now I actually will have a banner put underneath my video when I finish this live stream by YouTube, by Google, saying that not only is climate change real and that weather patterns are changing, that it's human induced, that it's caused by human activity. There's no way possible that there is any evidence available that says that it is human activity that is causing the climate to change. That's a theory, and it's one that they can't provide any actual solid evidence for, because we know that the climate has changed previously. In fact, we know that there was an ice age and that we came out of an ice age, and that means if that we were in an ice age previously and the planet then moved out of the ice age, okay, the climate changed and became warmer. Who caused that? Why can't any scientist actually answer that question? Who caused the last warming of the planet when we came out of the ice age? Because there wasn't any industrial activity happening back then. So why was it actually a natural cycle and a natural event back then? But now that the planet is shifting and the weather patterns are changing, it's suddenly all the fault of human activity. That's just something to think about. And there's actually more information in regards to this latest data about the Earth's axis changing that also shows how contradictory their own theories in regarding that this is human activity actually is. Right, so let's kind of get into this now. So as I said, between 1993 and 2010, the Earth's axis shifted by 31.5 inches. But in this other article that I've also posted, now all of the articles are linked underneath the video, so you can go and look at them for yourself in more detail. So in another article, which is called Earth's Axis Tilted Dangerously 84 million years ago, may happen again, says study, and that was published on October the 21st, 2021. They were saying that the tilt was due to climate change in this article, but they don't mention what climate change has caused the Earth to tilt. So I'm assuming that it's the glaciers melting, because in the latest articles, and every single article that you will see on Google News, all you have to do is type in Earth's tilt and you will see all of the articles that have now been released. It's like the Ministry of Truth put out a narrative, and then every single media outlet repeat that article in the almost exact same wording. They mentioned that it's not only the pumping out of the groundwater, so the extraction of groundwater, the displacement of groundwater, but also the glaciers are melting, and that actually caused the oceans to rise, get this guys, 6 millimeters. That's less than 1/4 of an inch. So apparently someone knows how to measure that accurately. Okay. And that's enough to tilt our planet as well. But they can't tell you, is it the groundwater extraction or is it the glaciers melting? So what percentage is groundwater extraction and what percentage of it was the glaciers melting? In fact, they can't really tell you. All they've actually got to give evidence for it being the groundwater extraction that has caused the Earth's tilt to change 31.5 inches is computer modelling. And this computer modelling, mind you, has only just surfaced in the last 2 years, because in 2021 they weren't using the narrative of it being the water extraction as the catalyst for this change in 31.5 inches of the Earth's tilt. So why they suddenly now have changed up their narrative, I don't know. But every single article headline you will see, if you go and look this up, will have in the headline that it's water extraction, that it's changing, that it's the pumping of groundwater. That's what they want you to see. They don't want you to pay attention to the fact that the Earth's axis has tilted 31.5 inches and the sun is no longer now rising and setting in the same area. Now we know that the sun also changes along the horizon due to the equinox and the solstice, okay? So let's just forget anybody that's going to say, oh, but of course the sun changes, because that's what was happening in 2011 and 2012. Everyone was just saying, that's just what happens, it's the equinoxes and the solstices. No. This is actually, the sun has changed its position on the horizon because the tilt of the planet has changed 31.5 inches. And so these articles that they've just now published on Google News, like all of these news articles that are featured on all the different news platforms, are actually 95% about the Earth water, the groundwater being extracted, okay, being pumped out of the ground, being pumped out of the Earth, and 5% is about the actual change. No data on how much it's changed since 2010. No information on if they can expect it to change further. No mention on how much it changed between 1993 and 2010. No information on the actual study and the computer modelling that we can see for ourselves so we can go and check on the data for ourselves. No, 95% of the article's all about how it's our fault. So, again, we're being lied to, guys. I mean, it's time for people to wake up. But the Inuit say it so perfectly. When I go into more of what they say, you will understand why people are just completely oblivious to these changes. So in this article that was published on the 21st of October 2021 in the India Times, it goes on to say that Earth experienced a dangerous tilt in its axis about 84 million years ago. Scientists have found it's well established by now that the Earth will continue to tilt on its axis from time to time. The last time a tilt of 12 degrees was recorded was about 84 million years ago when dinosaurs ruled the Earth, scientists claim. A similar tilt is currently underway on Earth, caused as a direct consequence of climate change, a study from April found. Now there is evidence of Earth's axis movement in the past. In a paper published in Nature Communications this year, scientists explain how these observations represent the biggest challenge to the notion that Earth's axis has been stable for the last 100 million years. So they were wrong. They were wrong about that. And they were only shown to be wrong about that because it's changing now and it's changing rapidly, and they need to actually come up with a reason why it's changed, why it's changing. And of course they're going to blame us, because if they say that it's something beyond our control, that scares the shit out of the normies. They can't handle that. They have to think that we're in control of everything. So that's why the scientists blame us, because, oh, it's our fault. All we have to do is just put the water back in and it'll change everything and fix it all. I mean, that's what the normies are thinking. That's what the sheeps are thinking in the back of their mind. Well, if we did that, well, then we can change it again. Okay, they can't handle thinking that there's anything out of our control. And that is why when I put out these videos and I talk about things that are beyond our control, you know, the solar weather, the solar patterns, the space weather that is beyond our control, people get triggered so badly because they are fearful of anything that they don't believe is in our control. That's why people can handle when you say that the Earth's weather patterns are changing because of humans and human activity. They like the thought of that. Okay, they like to think that that's the case because that means that we're controlling everything. And humans love to think that they are in control of everything, when in actual fact, we're in control of nothing. Absolutely nothing. So essentially, scientists claim that whenever the Earth tilts, it also snaps back into its old position quickly. Something the researchers called a cosmic yo-yo. Now, that's something else I want to actually bring up here. Because remember how I said at some stage there's going to be a crack? There's going to be a huge change, a huge shift, and that is going to result in massive cataclysms. Okay, this is found in our geology as recent as 12,000 years ago, 12,500 years ago, which just happens to be half of a precessional cycle, half of the great year. Okay, and they're saying that this can happen. So what if that's happening now, guys? What if we're actually, our Earth is tilting and it gets to a certain level, and then for some reason the pull between the electromagnetic change between the sun and the Earth can no longer, you know, be held in place, and it just snaps back to its original tilt. And then that is what causes massive tidal waves, massive cataclysms, massive volcanic activity, earthquakes. Okay, exactly what all of the mythologies are warning us about. All of our ancient ancestors left these mythologies, these warnings to us, because they know that that's what's happening. That's what happens in our cycle of the great year. And now we're at the end of the great year, and we just happen to be seeing all of these changes again. All of these changes that every single mythology, all of the scriptures, the holy texts, you know, the Hermetic texts, all of them saying the same thing. People really just think that's a coincidence? And that our scientists, if they knew that this was the case, do you think that they would tell us the truth when our entire system is reliant on us believing in complete stability? That the Earth never changes and any changes always happen really, really slowly? And now that they have to admit that, oh, well, actually, we were wrong. We actually thought that the Earth's axis didn't change for like 100 million years. But yeah, hey, guess what? It's actually changed from 1993 to 2010. Wow. From 100 million years to just over a decade. They were very wrong. Okay, and it's interesting that they're saying that this happened 84 million years ago. Well, there's no way in hell that they can prove that. Okay, they just can't. All right, again, it's all about modeling and theory and hypothesis. Okay, But what caused it to tilt last time? Were the dinosaurs, you know, driving diesel and gas cars around? Were they using coal-powered energy generation? Electricity was being, you know, generated by coal power. That's what caused it to happen 84 million years ago. Because I don't understand how 84 million years ago, if it happened then, which I'm telling you, they don't even know, it doesn't happen 84 million years ago. It happens every 26,000 years, or probably every 12,500 years. But let's just say they're right and it happened 84 million years ago. What caused it to happen back then? So it was natural back then, but now it's not natural. Yeah, guys, you know, people really need to start asking themselves why we are believing these white coats at all when they can, you know, be so easily shown to be wrong all the time. So I want to go and look into this video that I was telling you about that was released in 2011, and it's about these Inuit elders and what they were saying. And as I said, you know, we were discussing it back then. Anybody that was, you know, awake back in 2011 and 2012, and I know there are a few of you who still follow my channel, probably I can count you on two hands, that were observing events back then and probably remember this video, because, you know, we were already starting to identify that there were things happening, things changing, things weren't as they seemed, you know. And anybody that goes back and looks at all of my videos from 2011 and 2012 can see that I did hundreds of videos on all of the different anomalies that we were seeing in our weather patterns, and animals were dying, and you know, just unusual events that were happening. And back then, you know, we were laughed at. You know, anyone who suggested that the Earth had changed its rotation because the sun was now rising at a different part on the horizon was literally laughed at, was literally called a tinfoil hatter, was mocked, ridiculed. And now, 12 years later, we were right. We were right. And all of these sheeps that just hang off the coattails of their, you know, scientist gods, because really that's what scientists are now for modern humans. They're their gods, okay? And science nerds, or geeks as they like to call themselves, and it's worn with a little bit of a badge of honor these days, you know, that they're a geek. You know, it's really just another name for idiot. Because geeks are people who can't use their brains. They just listen to whatever their white coat gods tell them, and they believe it with absolute and total religious fervor. Okay, they think that that people who believe in anything spiritual are the ones that are ignorant, and yet people who investigate a more, you know, spiritual aspect of humanity as well as a physical are actually the ones with the open minds and the ones that actually go and investigate. Okay. And it's funny, I was just watching all of my concurrent viewers, and as soon as I started calling geeks idiots, it dropped like by 3 people immediately left the chat, you know, like, I'm out of here. I don't like what she's saying. I'm triggered. You know, I just laugh that people think that you can just turn off reality and turn off the truth, okay? You might not like what I'm saying, but I'm telling you right now, you are not going to avoid what's coming, all right? People calling me crazy 11, 12 years ago, and I was right about what I was saying back then. I was right to believe in the Inuit Elders, and I am right to believe in our ancient ancestors and what they've left for us with the warnings about what we can expect that is going to happen in our near future. And I was right about the pandemic. I was right about that. Okay, I'm right about everything so far that I have said that has played out. The only thing that hasn't yet played out is World War III and the coming global financial collapse. And I can absolutely guarantee you that I'm going to be right about that too. Okay, so I'm not here to gloat about being right. I'm here to say, at what point do you start taking what I'm saying seriously? At what point do you start thinking, well, maybe I should stop trusting these experts and start listening to somebody who's been observing all of these events and go and do a little bit more research into what else this researcher has been piecing back together? Because I don't think I'm getting the full story from my scientists. And quite frankly, what my scientists, what my white coat gods are telling me right now is not really adding up. Because they can't explain to me how come we left the last ice age and the earth started warming, but there was no industrial revolution back then. They can't tell me 84 million years ago, when the earth was supposedly changed its tilt, why it just changed and there was no man-made activity that was the catalyst for that change. You know, that's what people have to start asking themselves. How many times do these scientists have to be wrong before people start identifying that it's nothing but an illusion of knowledge that they are providing for mankind? And they even know that there's this actual syndrome called white coat, the white coat effect, where people, when they wear a white coat and give information, are taken more seriously than somebody else giving information that doesn't have a white coat. Okay, we are being socially engineered right now. We have been socially engineered for the last 100 years. Absolutely bombarded with propaganda and social engineering. Okay, since the first printing press was invented, and then when the first television set was turned on in our lounge rooms, we lost the war completely for our minds. Okay, they took all of our free thinking away from us at that time. Do you guys actually see a correlation between the dumbing down of society and the first public broadcast of a television program? Because I can tell you, you can connect the two. Okay, we are getting stupefied because we are being propagandized and no longer trusting in our own intellect. Well, it's time to start trusting in your own intellect, because there are changes happening now that they can't hide anymore. So all they can do is just continue to either censor us, which I have to worry about my channel being taken down because I'm actually just bringing you this information and I'm disagreeing with the white coat gods. So apparently that's a crime now in this brave new world. It's a crime for me to actually bring this information out, and I can actually risk being censored, have my channel taken down. So people need to think about that. You know, why is this the case? Why can't people discuss alternative theories? Because all of these white coat gods do not have any hard evidence. You will not find any hard evidence for their theories. It's just a theory. So why isn't anybody else allowed to present an alternative theory that's actually supported by evidence? People have to start asking themselves that. So the video, which I have actually posted underneath, it features two Inuit elders from Inuit, which is the southernmost community on the Nunavut mainland in Canada. And they stated back in 2011 that the sun's position has changed. So I'm going to actually just give you an excerpt of what they said in the video, but as I said, it's linked underneath. You can go and listen to them for yourselves. So the first elder says, "To the people who don't observe, they don't notice anything." Okay. And I just thought that that was just like, all in one sentence, the complete explanation for modern civilization. People who don't observe don't notice anything. He said, one of the things I am noticing about climate change is that the sun is rising in a different area. The sun is out longer during winter, even though the days are supposed to be shorter. And during the longer days, the rising of the sun seems to be coming from the north, like the sun has moved from one place to another. Now, mind you, this has been translated as well, okay? Like it's the earth rotating, right? He said like it's rotating. I just put the earth because that's what he meant, like the earth has rotated. Because of the rotation, it seems to be getting warmer. So I can see that there's there's something in the chat that needs to be removed, and I don't care if you remove them, Rochelle. I do not have time for these people. I just don't, okay? If this information triggers them so much, they can go and get their information from somebody else. I am not here to debate or argue with anyone, especially someone who has an empty channel, okay? If you don't have any research or study to back up what you're saying, I am not interested in anything that you have to say because it's nothing but an uninformed opinion. Go and have a look at my channel. I have 12 years of study on my channel. I back myself up. I don't just tell you what my opinion is. I actually show you the evidence that brings me to the conclusions that I have and that I have brought to you previously before today. A lot of people find my live streams maybe for the first time and think that I'm just giving you my opinion because they have no actual understanding of any of my research or studies. They haven't bothered to go and look at my channel. They haven't bothered to go and look at my over 800 videos of research. They just make an assumption based on one video. And then they have an opinion. And then if they're told that we're not interested in their opinion, they start crying and whining about how they're being censored and how it's so unfair. Well, you know what's unfair? When people who have nothing but an opinion, who have done no research for themselves, who assume to know the information that I have, but have not bothered to look at any of my other videos, come onto this live stream, actually then provide nothing but a empty opinion based on their beliefs and beliefs gathered by them just looking at information provided to them by either alternative channels, which are all controlled opposition, or just something they've seen on the media, okay, the mainstream media, or just something that they've decided is the truth for no other reason that they just want to believe something. So if that's you, then you're not welcome on my channel and you will be removed because I do not want you creating more white noise for others who are interested in this information, who do want to go and do further research after they've listened to this video. If you want to call it censorship, if you want to call it unfair, if you want to think that I'm nasty, that's fine. That's fine. I've been called names for the last 12 years. It makes no difference to me because you know what? It doesn't change the truth. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not even going to read what was said in the comments because I think I've spent already too much time on addressing comments instead of actually looking at all this information that we have to get through in 2 hours. Okay. So I think what you should do is just not chat at all. Just listen. And if you have any questions at all, leave them for the last half hour and I will go back through the comments and I will address any questions that you have then. Okay? But as I said, I'm not interested in opinions. So if you do have something that you disagree with, you better back it up with some evidence. I'm not interested that so-and-so said something. Not interested. Okay? Back it up with evidence and then I'll pay some attention to it. So that is what he said. He said that the sun has moved from one place to another like it's the earth rotating. And then last year, 2010. So this is another Inuit elder. So that was the first Inuit elder. And then there was another Inuit elder, and he said last year, which would have been 2010 because the video was uploaded in 2011. So he was speaking about 2010. Now let's remember that the scientific study, that the data that they released was from 1993 to 2010. And he said that last year was when he started seeing the changes. Okay, so again, these Inuits, they live so close to nature that they are the first ones that see any changes. If it's anyone we should be listening to, it's the Inuits. It's the natives that still live with the land, aligned to the land. And he says, I noticed that the weather changed dramatically. So he's talking about in 2010. Today, the changes in the weather are easy to notice. So he's saying it's so easy for anybody that lives on the land to notice these changes, right? And he's saying that the changes have happened because of the rotation of the world. He said maybe the rotation of the world is causing climate change. So basically, they were saying that the weather patterns had changed. They weren't saying back then in this video that it was man-made. Okay, none of that was mentioned. What they were saying is that they were noticing big changes with the wind, the direction of the wind, the way that the sun had changed, where it was rising on the horizon, that how the sun was actually now in the sky longer, which was causing it to increase the temperature on the ice, okay, and change the weather patterns due to that as well. And that they were blaming these changes that they were identifying in the weather patterns on the change of the rotation of the earth, of the planet. So we can see it back then. It was actually being told to us. And those of us who were listening were paying attention. Those of us that were observing these events too, and not just putting our complete trust in the authorities, were actually listening to these elders, and we were paying attention because we know that they have no agenda. Okay, the Inuits have no agenda. Why would they lie? Why would they lie to us? Are they getting huge grants from the government to put out certain information and to follow a certain narrative? Because I can tell you that your white coat gods, okay, the white coat gods of modern society, of humanity now, are all being paid by our governments to put forward these narratives. Okay, that's absolutely easily backed up with evidence. And we know how corrupted the peer review process is too, and how there are so many other, researchers and scientists who are now starting to reveal how corrupted the system is. And if you bring forward any information that doesn't fit the approved narrative, you will be ridiculed. You will actually lose your career. You will never get a government grant. You will never be taken seriously in your field. So this is what we have to understand when it comes to these experts. Okay, they're not experts. They're experts in propaganda. They're experts in creating a narrative that keeps humanity stupefied. So, as I said, this has nothing to do with the extraction of groundwater, nothing to do with human activity melting the glaciers, and in fact, the latest data from the Danish Meteorological Institute says that the Arctic has just experienced its coldest May since 1958. And on June the 15th, and I've actually got the data in the photos, in the pictures that I'm showing you, the Greenland ice sheet gained a record-breaking 5 gigatons of ice. And this glacier should be shedding ice at this time of year. So if we were actually experiencing the melting of glaciers that was causing our sea levels to rise 6 millimeters or less than 1/4 of an inch, and that was enough to shift the earth off its axis, off its current axis, then why are we actually seeing record-breaking amounts of ice being gained on the Greenland ice sheet? And why are we seeing that the Arctic has just experienced its coldest May since 1958? Shouldn't we just be progressively seeing the Arctic melting and the glaciers melting, like measurably as the Earth has tilted off its axis? But no, we're not seeing that. And again, we can see evidence that we're not seeing that. So this is very significant, guys. This is something that we need to pay attention to, because this changes all of our weather patterns. You know, the way that the sun hits the planet, the angle that the sun hits the planet. And what I'm suggesting that we do is I'm actually going to make a post in Shift of the Ages where we actually contribute our own observations to the changes that we're seeing in our immediate environment around us, because I am actually seeing changes in my environment in regards to cloud cover. The clouds are now actually sitting a lot lower, and I can see that this is very noticeable, especially in the last month. I'm also hearing stories from somebody in my immediate circle where they questioned, and I was actually going to talk about this at the beginning of the stream, and I must have just gone off on a tangent, but they actually didn't know about this article, and they said that they'd seen a change. They said, this is how they said it. They said, well, I've actually seen something change. And I was like, oh, okay, what? Well, at work, and they work off premises where they stay out at the site for a week at a time. And so they have something called a crib room where they actually go and have their lunch. They meet there in the morning before they all get bussed out to where they have to go. They have their lunch there. And he said that every morning in the crib room, he has worked at this site for the last 4 years. And he said every winter he goes and sits at this window, at a chair on this window at this certain position, because the sun would come in the window at this angle every winter, and he would get warmed up before they were bussed off to where they were going to go, right? But he said this last winter he has noticed that the sun is no longer coming in through that window and hitting the chair where he used to sit. Now, I know that this is only just it's anecdotal, okay? This is just me saying I've heard it from somebody in my inner circle, all right, who hadn't even seen the article, which I then subsequently told him about. But I'm sure that there are other people that are probably either seeing these changes themselves or are speaking to older people or people that observe things like that. So not everybody observes the sun where it rises and that, but you'll find that older people, and I'm talking like older than the boomers, like the silent generation, you know, people in their, 80s, mid 80s, like probably 75 to mid 80s to late 80s, they always observe things like that because they lived in a time where that was important. They didn't have a weatherman, they didn't have an app on their phone, telling them what the weather was going to do tomorrow, whether it was going to rain next week, whether it was, going to, have a cold snap or a hot, a heat wave, whatever. They didn't have technology. They had to rely on their own observations. And so you'll find a lot of these older people are the ones who notice these changes too, because they know where the sun's been rising. They know in their garden where the sun has always hit, okay? And there's another example from somebody else I know who has also noticed that the sun used to hit her clothesline every year. In winter at a certain angle and in summer at a certain part. It would always, hit the clothesline in a similar way. And now the sun doesn't shine on the clothesline, doesn't hit the clothesline at all. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, these little changes, these subtle changes that most people may just ignore and not really think much of, but there's some among us who do observe these things and have noticed them, and we may just think to ourselves, oh, that's weird, and don't think anything more of it. But what I'm saying is that we should be noting them, because we're not going to get this information from our white coat gods. They're not going to give us this information. They're going to tell us 5 years later, 10 years later, okay, or when it's too late, because things are now accelerating, guys. We're now seeing changes on the sun. We're now seeing changes in our ionosphere that we didn't see last solar maximum. Okay. We're now seeing changes in our ionosphere and even our lower atmosphere, which we didn't see last solar maximum. And so things are escalating, okay? And so they're going to keep creating this narrative, which is why they've actually created this whole human-induced climate change narrative, because they need to justify all of these changes and blame it on us. Because as I said, when they blame it on our activity, when they blame it on us, it makes people believe that we're in control of everything, okay? It gives people a sense of security, because if we've made all of these problems, if we've made all of these changes, then we can fix it, right? I mean, that's what they believe. And then these scientists say, well, we're almost at the tipping point. We've got a few more years. We've got a few more years to change things before we hit the absolute tipping point. And so it gives people this sense of security, okay? And then the sheeps don't panic, okay? We don't have the herd mentality panicking, because our system relies on everyone thinking everything just carries on. Tomorrow is going to be the same as it was today. Today is the same as it was yesterday. It's called normalcy bias, okay? And that is what normally creates victims, because people don't expect anything to ever change, because that is how we've been socially engineered. Changes, everything that happens in our, environment takes millions of years. That's the narrative, all right? It doesn't just happen quickly. We know it. It can happen quickly. And they've even admitted in this actual research that they did in regards to the tilt changing 84 million years ago, that it can just snap back, okay? It can just snap back all of a sudden, quickly, okay? And so that is what we're going to experience. This is a natural event. And so we should prepare ourselves for this, because everything happens in, it's like two sides of extreme, two extremes. Something goes one way, it goes back the other way. We see it all the time. It's called the tables turn, okay? We're going to see that even in the way that the political shit show is playing out right now. Okay, we're going to see the opposite extreme of this progressive liberalism that we're seeing with all of this support of immoral behavior. That when we have the reset, the global financial collapse that they are going to, bring in and bring us all down to, bring us to our knees financially. And then when they bring up the new system, it's going to be the opposite of what the liberal, the progressive liberals were pushing. It's going to be the religious conservatives. Think of the Handmaid's Tale, I think it's called, or the Handmaiden's Tale. If you haven't already seen that series, which was based on a book, I suggest you go and watch it, because that's what's coming for us, okay? It's going to snap back into something completely the opposite. And we can see that everything always has to play out on all the different planes of causality. And that is what is going to happen even in our society. So anyway, I thought that that was interesting. As I said, I'm going to put a post in Shift of the Ages. And so if any of you want to contribute to the changes that you're, with the changes that you're seeing happen in your immediate environment, even if you want to just post them below on this video, and then I can copy and paste it into the group so we can keep it all in one place. And we can see these changes taking place in our own environments, and especially if there's a few people that live in the same state, the same area, we can actually start to compare, our experiences. And so things like the air glow, which I'm going to talk about next, is something that we can actually observe in our environment. Now, the reason that it's seen in Colorado, and I'll get into this, is probably because there's less light pollution in the middle of America than there is in the coastal areas, because, there's a lot more cities and population and there's a lot more light. But if you were to actually go out into your backyard at night time, and if you have an SLR camera, or a digital camera where you can actually leave the lens open for a certain amount of time, probably about 30 seconds, you will probably actually be able to capture if there's any air glow in your area, because the light pollution makes it a lot harder to see air glow. And even if the moon is actually full, the illumination of the moon will actually make it difficult to see air glow as well. But we'll get into that in the next article I'm about to read out to you. Just before we go there, though, I did just want to bring one more bit of information in regards to the Earth shifting on its axis, and they're saying that it's absolutely the extraction of groundwater and the melting of glaciers. Well, that's interesting, because in 2004, the MSN just published an article about the Indonesian earthquake that happened then in 2004. And remember, that was the big one with the tsunami, and it was not the one in Japan in 2011, right? We're talking about the Indonesian earthquake back in 2004, Boxing Day 2004. Well, this article that was published on msn.com on the 2nd of June this year states that the 2004 Indonesian quake shifted the Earth on its axis and shortened the days. Interesting. I thought the extraction of groundwater did that. See how they can't even actually keep their story straight? So what is it? So, okay, so if it was the extraction of groundwater, then what actually, so what else after 1993? So that happened in 2004. This is when this earthquake happened. So what percentage of the movement of the axis can relate to when this earthquake shifted the Earth off its axis, on its axis, and shortened the days? So did they contribute that to their data? Oh, well, we don't know that, because they haven't actually shared their data with us. They haven't actually shared their computer modeling with us and how they came to this conclusion that it was groundwater extraction. So see how we just have to believe them. Okay, but even though they actually contradict themselves, and they actually say that it is a earthquake that shifted the Earth on its axis and shortened the days as well. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to you as well, because it just confirms that we cannot believe the narrative that they are pushing. And I am actually going to go with the theory that was postulated, or that was actually provided to us by our ancient ancestors, and that this is a natural event, and that the reason that we know that this is a natural event also and confirmed is that it's happened before, and it's happened before humans had the industrial revolution. Okay, even if it wasn't 84 million years ago and it was only 13 million years ago or 26,000 years ago, it happened before, and it happened previous to us actually extracting groundwater out of the earth, and supposedly using coal-fired electricity plants. Okay, so I'm going to go with the evidence-based theory that this is a natural part of our cycle, and we can expect these changes to continue to escalate. Right, so let's move on to the air glow observed in Colorado. So this is from spaceweather.com, and they literally just put this out, and they say that there was no geomagnetic storm on June the 22nd. Nevertheless, the sky turned green over rural Colorado. Now, notice I say rural Colorado. Again, it's because light pollution will basically cover air glow. Okay, it will just drown it out. It will just, you won't be able to see air glow if there's any light pollution. But if you are in a rural area, and even not really rural, but just away from any direct city lights, you may be able to just hold the exposure of your camera open for say 30 seconds, experiment, and you'll probably will be able to capture air glow. Okay, so this was on the 22nd. I woke up at around midnight to crystal clear skies, and I noticed some wispy rays and thought maybe it was noctilucent clouds. But upon closer inspection, it was an intense green air glow rippling across the entire sky. The ripples look like auroras, but they are not. Air glow is a completely different phenomenon, and it gets started during the day when the sunlight ionizes atoms in the Earth's upper atmosphere. Although these are not auroras, they might still be linked to solar activity. In the 1930s, Lord Rayleigh realised that air glow peaks during the years around solar maximum, and modern studies in 2011 and 2022 have confirmed the effect. Air glow is brightest when the sun is most active. The reason why is not fully understood. Can you believe these people? Not fully understood? Well, is that because we have an electric magnetic connection to our sun? Would that be the reason? And the sun is ionizing the top of our planet's atmosphere? Would that be the reason? Would the reason be that for the past 5 months we've seen a continued ionization of the top of our planet's atmosphere to the point it's the hottest it's been in decades, if not in historical record keeping? Could that be the reason? I mean, but it probably has to do with the sun's increased output of ionizing ultraviolet radiation. That means it's time to look for air glow. Solar cycle 25 is intensifying with maximum perhaps less than a year away. Get away from the city lights, wait for the moon to set, and point your camera at the midnight sky. It might not be as dark as you think. So, literally, we're seeing more tangible evidence that our atmosphere is changing, guys. We're seeing air glow. We're seeing air glow without even geomagnetic activity. It's just happening for no reason. You can literally just go out, point your camera at the sky if you're not near the city lights, and you will probably be able to photograph air glow. It's probably better that you follow SolarHam. I do have a link underneath, and understand that when we have any change in the solar flux, so we get like a M flare or an X flare or even a higher class C flare, it ionizes the top of our planet's atmosphere, which means it is creating friction and heat, and that is ionizing the top of our planet's atmosphere, and that is causing this air glow to be more visible, okay, in rural areas of America. Now, again, the reason they're publishing these articles and these photos is because they can't ignore it. This guy probably doesn't even watch space weather. He probably doesn't even understand the different changes in solar weather and how that affects the atmosphere of the planet. He probably just photographed these, waves of air glow, and then just Googled space weather and then brought up spaceweather.com and sent his photo there. There's probably more than just this guy. There's probably a lot of people sending photos. And that's the reason they have to actually address it, because they can't hide it anymore. Too many people are starting to identify the changes in the atmosphere, and they're starting to question them. So again, if you guys do see any of these changes and photograph them, I'd love you to add them into Shift of the Ages under the post where we're actually going to start collating all of these different changes. Okay, let's keep moving on. So the next article that I wanted to actually bring attention to is this one about interstellar clouds near the galactic center become 1,000,000 times brighter. Again, we're starting to see changes in our atmosphere, changes in our solar system. Now remember, I brought you information about the changes we're seeing in the supernova that happened in the Ursa Major constellation, okay, the constellation of the Greater Bear, okay, that is still ongoing, all right? And also we're seeing changes in Betelgeuse, okay? It is brightening to its brightest it's ever been in history, in recorded history. And I've also brought information how the Orion Nebula has been brightening over the last few hundred years as well, okay? This isn't something that has just started in the last few decades, though we're now seeing more pronounced changes in the last decade or so, and now especially in the last few years. But these changes have been happening for a while. So it goes on to say that the interstellar clouds near the galactic center become 1,000,000 times brighter. Interstellar clouds near Sagittarius A, okay, now they call the galactic core, okay, the galactic center, they call it Sagittarius A, okay, and they say that it's a black hole, all right? I rather see it as a vortex because they don't actually understand the physics of our universe, okay? And I don't actually believe black holes are something that are a phenomenon in our universe. I think that they are just theorizing about these vortexes which are just at the center of our sun, the center of our galaxy, and also the center of our heart, okay, because we are connected. We are connected spiritually to our sun and to the galactic center, okay? So the center of the galaxy is a vortex, all right? They call it Sagittarius A, and they like to call it a black hole, and they say that it gobbles up, you know, planets and other stars, and, you know, again, theory, okay? And even if this is the case and nearby stars and nearby celestial objects are, you know, drawn into the vortex, energy is never destroyed. It means that they are just being rebirthed elsewhere or recreated, resurrected, okay, because energy is never destroyed. So this whole thing about black holes tearing apart, you know, they always love this destructive, you know, visualization that they give you when they talk about things out there, and everything's destructive and blows up and implodes and destroys things and rips it apart. You know, it's just bullshit, okay? Nothing that the universe does or anything out there that happens is something that happens by accident, okay? It's all part of a larger design, and they don't understand even the half of it, and even if they do, they'd never tell you anyway. They'd never tell us, okay? They're not going to tell us the truth. So they're saying that the supermassive black hole lurking at the center of our Milky Way galaxy is not as dormant as previously thought, a new study shows. Oh, wow, they were wrong again. Seems to be something that happens quite often with our white coats, isn't it? That they're wrong a lot. The slumbering giant woke up around 200 years ago before going back to sleep, according to the study published in the journal Nature on Wednesday. When it was active, the black hole was at least 1,000,000 times brighter than it is today, Marin said. Its awakening was notable. Now get this. They only think that the galactic core brightened 1,000,000 times brighter than it is now because the nearby galactic interstellar clouds, right, are brightening. So that means that they traced it back 200 years previously, and it means that, oh, the galactic core brightened. That's why the interstellar clouds are now brightening, because the galactic core brightened. And so we have to trace it back 200 years. You know, again, so they're not being direct with us. So basically what's happening is that interstellar clouds on the outskirts or near the galactic core are brightening, okay? And they don't know why, but they're just saying that the reason they're brightening is because 200 years previously the galactic core brightened, but they don't know why the galactic core brightened. So the study is linked, okay? So you can have a look at that in more detail. And yeah, the surge in X-ray light was as if a single glowworm hidden in a forest suddenly became as bright as the sun. So that's how much it brightened. So we're seeing changes again. We're seeing changes out in beyond our sun. Okay. So I thought that was really interesting as well, and it just kind of confirms everything else we're seeing about this supernova that we now can see in our sky, the blue star, and now the red star that we're seeing brightening more than it has ever been recorded in modern history. Again, changes. We're seeing changes, and they have to address them because there's so many other citizen scientists out there and citizen astronomers out there, i.e. people that just have the equipment to actually go and observe these events, that they have to address them. They have to put their spin on it. They have to provide a narrative to keep all of the sheeps asleep and not questioning why these changes are happening. Don't worry about it. Happened 200 years ago, okay? And this is where this whole speed of light fallacy comes in, even when they're talking about the supernova. Don't worry about it. It happened 25 million years ago. You know, we're just seeing it happen now. That's not true. Okay, the speed of light is just a theory. Okay, and there are other scientists out there, other people, other intellectuals that have postulated other theories about how light travels or how light is measured in waves, okay, rather than it's an entity that travels, you know, like a particle. And we can see that in the information that we have from Walter Russell, who was a polymath scientist, cosmologist, philosopher, and successfully predicted radioactive elements, deuterium, tritium, neptunium, and plutonium. He actually stated, and his theory was that light moved in waves. Okay, it was like the waves of an ocean, and how one point the waves seem to be moving, but it's not. It's just the motion between the peaks of the waves that are actually moving. So again, I'm not going to go into that. If you want to have a look at that information, look at Black Hole Sun, okay, and other galactic events, and that's where I explain about how the blue star and red star that we are now seeing brightening in our skies actually correlates to the Hopi blue Kachina, red Kachina. I've actually got more information about that. I will do a subsequent live stream connecting more dots with that mythology about Betelgeuse and how I think that the red Kachina was definitely relating to Betelgeuse. I found more information in the Native American prophecies that seem to connect Betelgeuse to the Kachinas. So I will, as I said, we will look at all of that information in another live stream. In this live stream, I just want to look at this latest information that we are now seeing be published in the, you know, the public sphere, because they can no longer hide all of these events that are taking place. So, again, with the whole, you know, speed of light fallacy, Eric Dollard, who was an electrical engineer and the only person since Tesla's death to successfully build a real magnifying transmitter. He was employed by the US Navy, the Radio Corporation of America, RCA, which was initially owned by General Electric, Westinghouse and AT&T, and also Bell Labs, which is now known as Nokia. So he is somebody who is an intellect, who was hired by our government, and he actually says that there's no time delay, so the whole time delay thing is meaningless. It doesn't take light years. There are no light years. Because there's no light, that means the light you see from the distant stars isn't 4 million years old. They could only be minutes. It could only be minutes old. It could be instantaneous. All their theories collapse. When you can't see the stars in outer space, nuclear fusion is a religion. It's a law. The world must believe, and that's all there is. So he's basically saying that because you can't see the stars and the sun and starlight in outer space, right, that all of their theories about the speed of light collapse. Okay? So, again, this is just a way that they put the normies into a sense of complacency, a sense of stability, a sense of security. Don't worry about it. Whatever's happening out there, if you see any of these changes out there that are happening, don't worry about it. It happened millions of years ago. We don't have to worry about it for another million years because it's not going to reach us till then. And you're going to be dead in 30, 40, 50 years. Don't worry about it. Okay? That's basically why they've created these theories. Okay? It's to just stupefy the masses and keep them ignorant. Right. Now, the next article that I found was really, really significant. And this is because it ties into the El Nino event that they have just called, which means that there are certain atmospheric indices that have been created. Okay, so there are certain atmospheric conditions that have identified that we've reached certain benchmarks which lead them into calling it an El Nino. So there must be certain ways that our atmosphere behaves before they will call it an El Nino and a La Nina, and this is caused by the heating of our oceans. Now, prior to the last few years, they have blamed human activity for the heating of our oceans because they can't hide the fact that the ocean is being heated from underneath. The narrative's changed. Okay, you have to go and watch my last live stream for more information about that. But anybody that did watch that last live stream, where I have shown and given evidence that it is the underwater volcanic activity that is increasing, the magma intrusions that are happening under our oceans that is causing the ocean to warm and then create these atmospheric conditions. Well, this new information about them mapping more hotspot magma intrusions confirms again what we were already connecting these dots in the last live stream. So I'll read the article, which again it is posted underneath. 10 years ago, Simon Neve made an unexpected discovery in Earth's mantle, a narrow pocket proposed to be filled with magma hidden some 60 kilometers underneath the seafloor of the Cocos Plate. Now, the Cocos Plate is the plate in between the Caribbean Plate and the North American Plate, I think. I have actually put some diagrams on the pictures that I'm showing you of the plates, so just confirm that to be absolutely sure. But it's around the, it's literally in between North America and South America, okay? So scientists study the edges of these oceanic plates to understand the history and formation of volcanic chains and to help researchers and agencies better prepare for future earthquakes and volcanic activity. In this active area between the Cocos Plate and the Caribbean Plate, Naif and his fellow researchers recently set out to document a series of magmatic intrusions just beneath the seafloor in the same area that the team first detected the channel of magma back in 2013. The researchers observed an abundance of widespread intraplate magmatism, volcanism where it is not expected. Naif says, basically away from plate boundaries, subduction zones, and mid-ocean ridges. So we're getting magma intrusions, not just where the plates are meeting. Okay, so not just where the tectonic plates meet. We're now seeing magma intrusions away from those areas. Okay, that would be all along the equator. Yeah, so interesting that. And he literally actually calls attention to the Galapagos Islands. And we know the Galapagos Islands are very important in regards to these magma intrusions, because that is where the latest heat signatures are being shown when we look at the ocean warming. And you can see the data sets that I have provided to us by NOAA, okay, which is why they called the actual El Nino, because they were saying that these areas are what is warming the ocean. And these areas are all where the magma intrusions are happening at the bottom of the ocean and pushing up plumes of hot water. Okay, and then that hot water is heating the top of the ocean, and then the top of the ocean is heating the atmosphere. So that is why this is so important, because it's confirming the last live stream and all of the information that we saw in the last live stream. We are seeing elevated volcanic activity happening underneath our oceans, and that is what's caused this latest El Nino. Okay, and that is what they will not bring your attention to, because they do not want you to know that. Even though they admit now that it is underwater activity that is creating hot plumes of water, and they are rising to the surface and heating the top of the ocean. They now admit that. Okay, they admit that. But they don't go into any further explanation about why that's occurring, because they don't want the sheeps to know it's that volcanic activity is increasing. The team identified that the source of magma, the Galapagos plume, is more than 1,000 kilometers away from where we detected this volcanism. Okay, so again, we are seeing that it's not just these hotspots that they've currently got mapped, but they're now seeing volcanic plumes. They're now seeing hot water plumes in areas that they haven't actually seen it before. And you know what I thought was even more interesting? That they're actually asking for plume hunters. They actually want people to go out and report any of these hot water plumes that they're seeing. If they happen to be fishermen or they happen to be boaters, you know, recreational boaters, they want people to be citizen scientists and relate this information to them so that they can further map these areas. So guys, it's just more confirmation of what we already know. There's massive changes happening on our planet, and you are not going to put the genie back in the bottle. It's just going to escalate further and further. And what we need to understand is that the more that the earth changes escalate, the more that the earth becomes unstable, and the more unstable that the earth becomes, the more that it threatens their power. And when it threatens their power, it means that they have a limited amount of time to play out their last cards. Okay, because we know that they're playing out a script right now. All of this Ukraine stuff, this Russia stuff, this China, America, it's all a stage show. Okay, I hope you don't believe that it's real, because if you believe that it's real, it actually means that you're still caught up in the circus show. Okay, you're still actually being played by them. It's all fake. Okay, and yes, of course, the stage show has to be convincing or you wouldn't believe it. Okay, you have to be convinced by their circus, you know, acts, or you wouldn't believe it and it wouldn't work. So, you know, it's all a stage show, and it's only going to escalate even further. Okay, as I said, we've got two major subplots left for them to play out. One is the global collapse, financial collapse. That's going to bring in communism and, you know, religious conservatism. You know, all of that is going to play out. You know, as I said, go and watch The Handmaid's Tale. That's exactly what's coming, okay? communism, and us being completely surveilled, like they will be our gods, absolutely, completely, and we will have no freedom at all, because that's what they want to do. You know, they're trying to emulate God. You know, it's almost like them having a go at God and the divine design that they can't handle and they can't stand and they hate, because they are not going to actually move into the next great year. They are going to be reaped, and they are going to be weighed and measured and found wanting. You know, they are not going to pass the weighing of the heart. Their destiny is the abyss, and they don't think that's fair. And so they are going to use what power they have to punish us and to punish God and to destroy everything that they cannot inherit. Okay, now this is where people who are interested in the science stuff and may have been listening to my video are starting to, you know, get all lost, and their eyes are starting to glaze over, and they're like, why is she talking about spiritual stuff? What? She's just talking about science, and she's just talking about all of these changes, and now she's talking about God, and she's talking about spiritual stuff. Well, for any of you who are only just discovering my channel, the physical is literally an extension of the spiritual, of the ethereal, okay? And so if you don't acknowledge the ethereal plane and you don't acknowledge the spiritual side to everything, then you are never going to get the full picture. And I can absolutely assure you that those who have control of our world and our governments absolutely acknowledge the spiritual side and the ethereal side of everything, which is why the Vatican has so much power, because they are the hidden hand. The Jesuits are the hidden hand behind everything. They are the ones who are currently writing the script, okay? And so we know that they've got a few more subplots to play out in their script, and they've got a limited amount of time to do that when the earth starts becoming too unstable. And so we can pretty much guarantee that in the next probably year or two that they are going to escalate that script, okay? And I am expecting by the end of this year we are probably going to see the global financial collapse, okay? And they're going to move us into the next part of their script, okay? So anybody thinking that the evil people that played out the last 2 years, 3 years, where they locked us down, force vaccinated 80% of the population of the planet, and that they've just quietly gone away, then you are deluding yourself, okay? Because they've just hit pause, because it's all about timing for them, okay? It all has to be timed, and they are watching the celestial activity, and they are watching the earth changes to time how they play out the next part of their script, okay? And we can tell with all of these changes happening now that we can actually tangibly see these changes, guys. It's no longer me just telling you that they might be happening and that you have to really observe closely and you may see these events happening. You can now go and literally take your camera into your backyard and take a photo of the sky and see air glow. Okay, you couldn't do that last solar maximum. You know, you can literally go and look on SolarHam, and I've got the link underneath, and see that the top of our planet is being ionized every day and has been ionized every day for the past 5 months. Okay, that didn't happen last solar maximum. These are tangible. You can actually see their data showing that there is magma intrusions happening underneath the oceans, which are pushing up hot water plumes, okay, causing the atmosphere now to change and them to call an El Nino. This is actually happening, okay? So you don't just need to rely on me telling you that these are happening. You can actually see them. So anyway, that article is also linked underneath, and I just found it really interesting that they were calling for plume hunters, okay? People that were going to help, people that are going to help them watch for these hot water plumes, these magma intrusions. They're now actually asking people to come and help them. Okay, that says everything. Okay. Now, another article that they released just recently admitting something that we actually said 10 years ago and were laughed at, and that is cosmic rays cause earthquakes. okay? And if cosmic rays cause earthquakes, then we know that solar activity causes earthquakes, because cosmic rays and solar activity are basically interconnected. Okay, so again, I thought this study was significant for a couple of reasons. One being that the last live stream regarding where I was showing you how the thermosphere is being in a constant state of ionization, and it's the hottest it's ever been in decades, and this was literally information released by spaceweather.com. So NASA, ex-NASA physicist Tony Phillips, Dr. Tony Phillips, runs a website called spaceweather.com, and he literally put this information out that I have got in the pictures that I'm showing you, and I've circled it and I've said what, because this dude Martin Milzanek, who is actually a NASA propagandist, so he's still employed by NASA, he was saying, don't worry about it, guys. Even though the top of the atmosphere of our planet is the hottest it's been in decades and maybe ever, right? Because it's continuing to get hotter and hotter, and we're only at the very beginning of the solar maximum, which, by the way, is not even acting like they thought it would act. They're actually bringing it forward. They're saying, oh, it wasn't until next year. Now they're saying, oh, well, we could actually hit solar maximum in the next few months because the sun's escalating that much and it's doing what we didn't expect it to do. So he's basically saying, oh, but don't worry, even though it's heating, it's not going to affect the climate or the weather, because it has no effect on weather or climate at all. Well, I'm just showing you study after study after study that shows you that solar activity is connected to climate and weather, because solar activity is connected to cosmic rays. So when we get more solar activity, we get less cosmic ray bombardment. When we get less solar activity, we get more cosmic ray bombardment. So they're hand in hand. There's even a graph where it shows you cosmic rays are heightened when solar activity is low, and vice versa, right? So, and then I go on to further show you evidence of how the ionosphere and the stratosphere are interlinked, right? So he's saying that it has no, the ionosphere heating has no relation to our weather. Yet we have something called sudden stratospheric warming events, where the stratosphere suddenly starts warming. They don't know why, but it actually causes Arctic blasts. It actually causes the polar vortex to become unstable, and we see anomalous cold events happen, okay? So, when Texas had that cold event where everybody lost power and people died and it was really horrible a few years ago? Well, that happened after a sudden stratospheric warming event. And the stratosphere and the ionosphere are absolutely connected, okay? You can see, it's like saying that, he's saying that there is a brick wall in between the different levels of our atmosphere. The only reason that there is different levels in our atmosphere is because they have labeled them. Okay? They have labeled them based on the height, based on the distance away from our planet. They have labeled the different parts of our atmosphere. They all commingle. You don't really know where one ends and one begins, because it's commingling with the next level of the atmosphere. So for him to say that the ionosphere does not actually have anything to do with our weather when it's heating, but then we know that stratospheric warming events, sudden stratospheric warming events, absolutely have been shown to affect the polar vortex and to cause cold anomalies. Okay, they can literally warn us that one's coming, because we get a stratospheric warming event and then 2 weeks later we get a cold anomaly. They warn us using these SSWs, they call them. Okay. And now this dickhead, Martin Milzanek, is trying to tell us, oh, no, don't worry about it. There's nothing to do with the weather. It can heat, it can make all these changes can happen. Don't be worried. Don't be frightened. It has nothing to do with our weather. Well, I'm showing you again and again and again studies that show, yes, it does have something to do with our weather. And it just also connected to this information in regards to cosmic rays causing earthquakes, because if cosmic rays are causing earthquakes, well, of course, cosmic rays can cause changes to our weather, okay? I mean, if they're causing changes within our planet that is creating tectonic activity, you would have to be a complete and utter ignorant to not realize that you could also see changes in our atmosphere and our weather conditions. And in fact, they've done studies that cosmic rays can actually change cloud cover and form clouds. Okay, again, space weather is directly connected to our climate and to our weather patterns and to tectonic activity. We can see it now. We can see that when we get heightened solar activity, we get heightened tectonic activity. It used to happen a little bit more haphazard last cycle, last maximum, okay? But now with this solar maximum, you can absolutely see that there's a correlation. So I do not have any doubt that cosmic radiation, cosmic bombardment is actually causing earthquakes. So it literally just goes on to say that there was a study from Credo initiated in 2016 by the Institute of Nuclear Physics of the Polish Academy of Sciences, and they found a strong connection between cosmic radiation and earthquakes, although not in a way anyone expected. We cannot imagine a conventional scenario in which the cosmic radiation causes earthquakes, and this comes from my whole career, 25 years experience in the field of ultra high energy cosmic rays. He's saying that they've looked at data for over the last 50 years, and they've found a clear correlation between earthquakes of magnitude 4 or larger and the intensity of secondary cosmic radiation. Now, cosmic radiation is primary or secondary, okay? So primary cosmic rays were discovered in 1911, and the origin of these cosmic rays still remain a mystery to astrophysicists, okay? Secondary cosmic rays are particles produced within the Earth's atmosphere as a result of collisions between primary cosmic rays and the molecules in our atmosphere. So secondary cosmic rays are a product of primary cosmic rays when they enter our atmosphere and they interact with all of the molecules in our atmosphere. It creates a different kind of cosmic ray, like they have a different makeup, okay? And he's saying that's what's causing the earthquakes, right? But they don't know where the primary cosmic rays come from, okay? Because primary cosmic rays can originate from 4 different sources, all right? Solar cosmic rays, anomalous cosmic rays, galactic cosmic rays, and ultra-high cosmic rays, right? So remember we just saw that the interstellar clouds outside of the galactic core were now brightening, okay? And now they're saying that galactic cosmic rays could be the source of cosmic ray bombardment on our planet. And secondary cosmic rays are now causing earthquakes, but they don't quite know how that's happening. Because apparently, after the cosmic rays bombard our planet, the earthquakes don't happen for 15 days. So it's changing something within the structure, the structure of the magma and the movement of the magma and the tectonic plates, the electric magnetic composition of our planet beneath our crust of our Earth. It's making changes that 15 days later result in earthquakes, but they don't quite know how that's happening or why that's happening. Again, we're only getting this information because they can't hide this anymore, okay, that this information is going to start becoming apparent more and more because we're going to start seeing more and more earthquakes and more volcanic activity, and they're going to have to admit that the sun and cosmic rays and solar activity are directly connected to our volcanic activity and our tectonic activity. They're just readying us for this. That's literally why they are bringing out this information now. So again, at the end of it, he says, let me go back. All right, he just basically says at the end of the article that they don't really know why. The lack of a classical explanation for the observed periodicities provokes consideration of the possible role of other less conventional phenomena. So something's happening out there, okay? Something's changed, and we don't know what, but we can now see that there's a correlation between cosmic rays and earthquakes. Okay, so basically that's what they're saying, they're admitting. Okay, lastly, guys, we're nearly at 2 hours, so this is going to finish lastly. And if anybody's got any questions or anything that they want to comment with, that they want me to read, now is the time to put it into the chat, because I'm just going to quickly go through this last article here, and then I'll answer questions, and let's hope that we finish it around 2 hours and we've actually got all of this information out within 2 hours. Okay, so this was also put out by spaceweather.com. So remember, spaceweather.com, run by ex-NASA solar physicist Dr. Tony Phillips, and he put out this article, Detecting Solar Flares, Disturbances to Our Ionosphere with Radio Waves and the Doppler Effect. So if you've been looking at the Doppler Effect diagram and you wonder why I'm showing it, now is the reason that I'm showing it. I'm explaining to you how they're using radio waves to actually identify changes and disturbances in our atmosphere caused by solar flux. Okay, so basically the Doppler effect is an increase or decrease in the frequency of sound, light, or other waves as the source and observer move towards or away from each other. The effect causes the sudden change in pitch noticeable in a passing siren. Okay, so it's just really, that's what the Doppler effect is. Okay, so when a siren is coming towards you and moving away from you, the effect of you hearing that sound is the Doppler effect. Okay, and so you can translate that to radio waves directed at the top of our ionosphere being disturbed by solar flux. Okay, so when we have a solar flare, they are now picking it up using radio waves. Now he's saying that it's new. Oh, why? Why is it new? Like, so you're telling me all of these all of these ham radio enthusiasts, okay, have never decided to use high frequency, radio waves to see if they can identify and observe changes in our upper atmosphere. Seriously, do they really want us to believe this? Because apparently they do. Because apparently this dude, he's making out that he's only just thought about it, thought to use it. Oh, it's only just the last 5 months that I've thought, hey, why don't I use high frequency radio waves to see if I can see changes in the upper atmosphere? And by the way, guys, we're calling citizen scientists to come and join us and see if you can detect the same thing. See if you can let us know that you're detecting changes in our upper atmosphere using high frequency radio. That's really the reason that I wanted to bring this article to your attention, is because, again, they're calling for citizen scientists. They're calling for people to tell them about all these changes that are now happening because, well, they want to know what's going on, and they don't have the equipment and the manpower to actually identify everything that's happening in our upper atmosphere. So they want more people to actually start observing things and report back to them. Okay? Don't go report it on your own website. Don't go report it on your own channel. Don't go report it on your own Facebook page or social media page. No, you just come and report it to us. And I bet you any money they have to sign a confidentiality agreement if they're going to be part of the team that is using the equipment, or that is using the, because they do say at the very end that they have a science program called the HAM SCI. The HAM SCI Citizen Science Program has been developed as personal space weather station specifically for Doppler shift measurements. So they've created this special program for radio ham operators, okay, to report the changes that they are witnessing in the ionosphere caused by solar weather, caused by space weather. Change is happening, guys, and they want more people informing them about the changes that they're observing themselves, okay? And don't go tell everybody else, just come tell us, because then we'll let everybody know, okay? And you're so special because you're part of NASA. You know, how many geeks, how many nerds would just love that? Would love to be, oh, I'm part of NASA's, you know, program, the HAM SCI program, you know. They play on people's ego, and they know, okay, that people will just play to the rules if it means that they can call themselves, you know, part of some special research program. And by the way, guys, that website that I'm showing you now about the gamma ray burst, the live gamma ray burst, that was basically connected to how cosmic rays are causing earthquakes. Because, well, how do we know anymore? Because they took all that data away from us a few years ago. So prior to, I think, 2016 or 2015, and if anybody knows and can correct me on this, but it was around from, say, 2015, 16, 17, around that time, they took our access away from actually observing gamma ray bursts, cosmic ray bursts in real time. Okay? So we can't do that anymore. So if we actually wanted to correlate our own research between 4+ magnitude earthquakes and gamma ray bursts that we could see in live time on that site, we can't do it anymore. So even if we wanted to help be able to identify future earthquake activity using cosmic ray bombardment, well, we have no ability to do so because they are now keeping all of that data to themselves. They've taken away our ability to actually see cosmic ray, gamma ray bursts in real time. Oh, you can go and see lists of them on their sites when you go click on all of those little links that they've put up there when they say, if you want to see the program as it is in its current form, click this link. And you go and click the link, and all you've got is like 50 other links where you can go and click on those links, and they just give you lists of gamma ray after it's happened. Whereas you used to be able to see it in real time. You used to be able to see exactly when a gamma ray burst happened, where it came from, the constellation it came from. If that constellation was showing multiple gamma ray bursts, you can't do that anymore. So again, this is just confirming that they don't want us knowing about the changes because we might actually put the dots together ourselves. And they don't want us putting the dots together ourselves, which is why I am at risk at having my channel taken down and this video censored and removed, because if I don't follow the narrative, if I don't follow their actual approved narrative, then I am actually creating disinformation according to them. I'm a sinner and I must be dealt with. My information and studies and research must be removed and my channel must be removed. Do you really think that that's what happens in an intellectual society? That opposing theories and information that opposes the government theories and information should be removed? You actually think that's what happens in an intellectual society? Because if that's what you think happens in an intellectual society, then you really have no clue what an intellectual society is. And we are going backwards when it comes to being an intellectual society. And okay, that brings me to my very last article. Actually, before I go to my last article, I just wanted to speak to you in regards to Eric Dollard. This is connecting to the Doppler effect and radio waves, high frequency radio waves, being able to detect changes to our upper atmosphere regarding solar flux, because Eric Dollard actually revealed that the sun controls, this is from my Black Hole Sun live stream where I brought out information from Eric Dollard in regards to the sun actually being a black hole. Okay, the center of the sun is not fusion driven, not a fusion driven core. It is a vortex. And he basically went on to explain that they engaged him in the study of radio astronomy because they knew that the sun and the alignments of the planets could be mapped, could be detecting what was going to, and could predict earthquake and volcanic behavior on the planet. Okay, so he goes on to say the sun controls all the frequencies. If you don't know what the sun's doing, you don't know what the frequency, you don't know what frequencies to use. That's why RCA started radio astrology. You have to know what the sun's doing, and the planets tell you what the sun's doing. RCA gave me the equipment, Sonoma University provided me with the place to do it, and the cosmos provided me with the planetary alignment. I was the guy with the equipment. I studied the whole event over the couple of years, and the whole solar system built into this alignment. So he basically was saying that the planets aligned, the electromagnetic activity between the planets aligning caused changes on the sun, and the changes on the sun caused the eruption of Mount St. Helens, Mount St. Helen, and that this can all be backed with evidence that he can show. So again, you know, they saying that they are only just starting to use high frequency radio waves to observe and identify solar flux in our upper atmosphere is ridiculous. It's ridiculous that anyone would believe that they haven't done this prior to now. It's just ridiculous. And so this graph now that he's showing is the X flare that registered using the high frequency radio, and that this was something that he hadn't seen before. And then he says that he's only just started using high frequency radio. So I don't know whether he means that he's never seen this before and that there are changes now registering in our ionosphere that he has never viewed before, as somebody who has continued to observe radio frequencies for 20, 30 years, whatever. Or if he's just saying because he uses high frequency radio now that was the first time he saw something register like that because of the X flare. It's not very clear on how he is relaying that information, but the fact that he's trying to say that he's only ever just decided to use high frequency radio to detect changes in our ionosphere due to solar activity is laughable. It's just freaking laughable, guys, and I don't know how anyone could believe it. But you know, look, there's people out here that hang off the words of NASA, of Elon Musk, of Mark Zuckerberg, of Bezos. I mean, and they call themselves intellectuals. Okay, and the social engineering is that geeks and science nerds are intellectuals. But are they? They don't actually think for themselves. All they do is repeat the propaganda that's provided to them by the white coat scientists and by the front men of, you know, companies like SpaceX and Facebook and, you know, Origin Blue or whatever Bezos's space program is, and Branson and all of those. They're all front men, okay? They've all been created. They're all characters that have been created to front these agencies and these businesses and these private enterprises, okay? To give humanity, to give modern humans the delusion that we are advancing, that we are intelligent, that we have any hope in hell of actually traveling to Mars and colonizing Mars. What a ridiculous, ludicrous, idiotic belief that we could actually live on Mars. That Elon Musk is going to terraform Mars. I mean, you have to be an idiot to believe this. And the problem is that Hollywood has propagandized people so much with sci-fi movies that people literally believe Hollywood is real now. They can no longer tell the difference between Hollywood and reality. It's fused. To them, they've fused it together. I can't tell you how many times people quote Hollywood movies as some kind of reality when they're trying to debate with me about the intellectual level and the advancement of technology that we have as a society. I mean, reverse landing a rocket, it's about as good as it gets, guys. Have you seen the ISS? Does that look like anything they have in Hollywood movies? No. Okay, it's a complete farce. It's a complete concoction of Hollywood, socially engineering us to believe that we have this ability to be this space-aged civilization, and we're not, and we never will be, because we don't actually have possession of that type of technology, and we never will. Okay, we're already peaking in technology. Okay, sales of smartphones are now plateauing because they just can't get any smarter. Okay, unless you want a bigger hard drive, bigger storage, better cameras. I mean, even though you can only get so good with your camera lenses and so good with your storage, and you can only have your phone be and a computer have a certain amount of speed, okay, in being able to click on something and it immediately open and go between programs like your RAM or whatever. Before, it just doesn't matter anymore. It can be quicker, but it only has to be quick enough for us to actually tell that we can get from program to program and utilize it in that way. And so any further, improving of, the computer and the way that a computer can compute data is just useless to us. I mean, even, pixels, beyond a certain amount of pixels, the human eye can't even tell the difference. So you can go and get 1,000 megapixel fucking, excuse me, 1,000 meg, let that one slip out, 1,000 megapixel photo, and it won't matter because we can't see the difference. So we're already peaking anyway. We've peaked as a civilization. All they have now is Hollywood to keep filling our heads with stories. Okay, so anyway, last article. I did promise you that I was going to go for the last article, and that is that new research links climate change to smaller brain size. Well, I don't actually think that it's climate change that is creating a smaller brain size. It's the fact that we just don't use our brains anymore. The fact is that all we do is we just repeat propaganda. We repeat what we've been told by the mainstream media, by alternative media. I mean, I want you guys to do a experiment with yourselves. Okay, now I reckon that a lot of you guys that listen to my video now, you probably would assume, would say that you're awake. Okay, I want you to tell me the last time you literally stated something to somebody that you didn't hear on an alternative media channel or a mainstream media channel. Okay? When was the last time you said something to somebody that you didn't hear from an alternative media channel or a mainstream media channel? That's something to think about, because I see a lot of people, and especially when I was on Twitter before they booted me from Twitter, I would see a lot of people who claimed to be awake, right? And then when the next distraction was played out, right? So say this underwater sub distraction got played out, okay? These same people would start theorizing with all these alternative theories, okay? But they were still focused on that same subject that the media had put out as a distraction. Okay, this latest one with the Wagner mercenaries, okay? How many people who claim to be awake have been sharing theories about the Wagner mercenaries and what happened with the Wagner mercenaries and Putin? So that's where you have to actually identify. And I'm not saying you don't get to discuss that type of stuff, okay? We discuss everything, and I know that I post my observations on all the distractions as well. But I'm saying if that's the only thing you're discussing, when it actually presents itself to you and then you say, well, I'm awake, I'm actually not being dictated to by the Ministry of Truth and I'm not being distracted. But are you? Are you literally just discussing every single subject that the mainstream media are pushing? Whether that be you're just discussing a different theory about it. I mean, okay, maybe you're not discussing the mainstream theory, but you're discussing the alternative theory that somebody else is discussing. You're still discussing the latest propaganda. You're still actually not engaging in independent thought. Do you understand that? That until you're actually discussing subjects that aren't being promoted through alternative media, the mainstream media, or anywhere, until you're actually focusing on subjects that aren't in those realms, for say 90% to 95% of the time, you're still being led around by those in control of our world and information. You need to make it so that 95% of the time you're discussing things that aren't in the media at all, whether that be alternative media, whether that be mainstream media. Okay, you don't want to be discussing any of that, because that's where your attention is at. That's when your attention is then. That is where your focus is. And if your focus 95% of the time is on what's being discussed in the public realm, whether that be you just have an alternative theory because you're not a sheep, because you're awake, and so you don't believe what the mainstream media are telling everybody, you have a different theory that you're discussing with everybody else, you're still discussing it. You're still being distracted by it. And if you're being distracted by all of their latest propaganda, which is the Wagner mercenary story, which is the billionaires that were on a submarine that was controlled by an ex-boss game. I mean, anybody that believes that, seriously, you can't be awake. You know, I had someone in my group say like, well, you know, rich people like to spend their money on things like, really? On submarines that are been shown to be full of failures, controlled by an Xbox controller. You think a rich person who fears death, who's sucked into the material so much that they fear death because they only ever want to live on the material plane because they're rich, would get into one of those? And then now we have not even any evidence that they ever existed or that they were ever even in the sub, because, well, the only thing that survived was the Xbox controller. Can you not see that they're mocking anybody that believes these stories? It's distraction, guys. It's distraction. It's not where your focus should be. Okay? Entering into endless discussions about politics, about Biden, about Trump, about QAnon, about, Putin, whether he's a good guy, a bad guy, whether he's part of the, elite, whether he's not part of, where he's against the elite, whether he's playing 20D chess, whether he's friends with Trump and they're going to save the world and they're secretly just playing this other game that we don't know. All of this is keeping your focus from what you should be actually doing right now, and that is researching knowledge about your soul, about your creator, about the cycle that we exist in, the great year cycle, the 26,000 year cycle that is now in its last degree. That is where your focus should be. Who are you really? Are you just this material skin suit, this meat suit? Is that who you think you are? Is all this politics that you're interested in and that you're focused on, is that reality? Because if it is, then you're never going to understand the truth. You need to extract yourself from this matrix that they've created. You need to identify that not only are you a material body, but you're actually housing your true self, which is your spiritual form, your soul. And you need to know that beyond any doubt so that you no longer have a fear of death, because that's going to actually matter in the next couple of years, because we're heading towards their last few subplots that they have left. Okay? And if you have a fear of death, then you are just absolutely going to be their victim, and they still control you and they still possess you 100%. But if you do not have a fear of death and you understand that you are a soul first and foremost, then they have no power over you. They have no control over you. They may have, control over your physical form, but they will never control your soul. They will never be able to control your mind, and they will never be able to take away that knowledge that you have about yourself. So that's where you need to get yourself. All right, guys, well, I'm going to leave it here. I don't think there was any actual questions. Hang on, question for later. I'm thinking of getting some land off the grid really soon, completely self-sustained. You think they will come for me? Absolutely. I do think they will. They'll come for any of us that aren't on their system. Anybody that hasn't been vaccinated, you are on their database. Don't for 1 minute think that you have escaped anything. Anybody who has been speaking out against them on social media, they absolutely have you on their radar. They know who you are. They know where you live. And anybody who is on the outskirts of society is absolutely going to be a target, not only of them, but also when we do have the collapse, because there will be a time, maybe, it'll only be a few weeks, where there will be a complete collapse, where everything collapses, the financial system, the electric grids, because this is what is going to allow them to take full control. And then, 95 to 98% of the sheeps are going to be so thankful that someone's come in to save us, that they will just do whatever they are told to do, and they will not push back. So during that time, you will be a target. So if you are going to be an outlier, you need to make sure that you can protect yourself during those few weeks where there is not going to be any police to come and get you or come and help you. But when they do bring in the new system, there will be people to come and visit you if you have been a dissident on social media, because you are on their radar. If you are not vaxxed, they will come and get you. They will know who you are. They will seek you out. It may take them a bit longer because there will be a bit of chaos, but they know eventually they're going to control all of the food, all of the water, okay, and they're going to have their armies at their disposal, and they're going to be combing through all of the forests to get anybody that is there and bring them in. And we're all going to be put into re-education camps, basically. So absolutely, that is, we're not going to escape it, guys. We're just not. So that's why it's important that you understand who you are on a spiritual level as a soul, so that you don't fear that. Okay, that you don't need to say, well, will they get me? I don't know, because they're going to. I mean, they're going to get us, all of us who were speaking out against them, because we're not susceptible to their propaganda. We're not susceptible to their social engineering, and so we're a threat to their system. We're a threat to them. We're an error code. Okay, and they need to deal with their error codes through re-education, and so that's what's going to happen. Yeah, so it's true what you say about independent thought. It's a difficult path. Of course, it's the hermit's path, okay? You're not going to find people in your immediate circle, especially in real life, that you can talk to about this subject. I wouldn't even bother. I'm talking mainly online. Where is your focus online? Is your focus online visiting videos that are discussing politics all the time? Is your focus online visiting, Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, Jordan Peterson, all of those conservative propagandists that tell you everything you want to hear, that, you know, they have their alternative theories, and because you're so against the mainstream, you know, you're against Biden, you're against the progressive liberals, you're against the system that they're instating, so you're looking for alternatives to that, so you just go down this other path that they've created for you, okay, because they've got their controlled opposition in place, so that when you're not happy with the changes that you're seeing in society and the politicians that are presently in power, you'll go down this alternative route where there are different politicians that say what you want to hear. That's why they always have these celebrities that tell us everything we want to hear, and they speak out against the system, and they speak out against corruption. And, you know, you'll even see it sometimes. There'll be politicians, these rogue politicians, that get up and they make these big speeches against, you know, the system, and they say everything we want to hear. That's them. That's them too. So they're just providing controlled opposition, okay? So they're corralling everybody who doesn't want to be a part of the path that we're currently on, with all of the immoral behaviour, the progressive liberals, the grooming of children, okay? You don't like that, so the alternative path is one that they've provided for you as well, okay? And so, of course, they have to have people there that are going to tell you everything you want to hear. They have to make it attractive for you to want to go down that path. So that path's not right either, you know, because then you're being, you know, influenced into the beliefs that they're providing for you on that path, and that there's going to be some other political saviour, you know, some other celebrity is going to save us, you know, and that's what they do. They put us in this sense of complacency, this sense of apathy, because someone powerful is speaking out and saying what we want, you know, what we want to say ourselves. And so it's very attractive to become part of that group. But again, while you're becoming part of that group and you're active online within that group and you're arguing with progressive liberals and all of that, you're really just not making any changes in your own life. Okay, your focus 100% right now should be on discovering who you are as a soul on a spiritual level, seeing beneath the matrix that they've created, and that means extracting yourself from your immediate circle. So you're not even talking to normies. I mean, you shouldn't even really be talking to normies unless you have to on a day-to-day basis because of your job that you have to go to, your wage slavery. Okay, that's the only reason I speak to people. You shouldn't even want to be interacting with people on that level, because how can you interact with people on that level and then extract yourself from that reality that they're all living together? Because they're creating your reality. And that's why I say to people that the first thing you want to do if you want to remove yourself completely from the matrix and being socially engineered is to throw your TV away. Okay, you do not want to listen to your TV because that is helping create the reality that you're in. Okay, so get rid of your TV. Don't listen to commercial TV at all, or that's what I call commercial TV, that program television. You know, watch things, you know, but understand that even Netflix and all of these streaming channels are pushing propaganda. You know, notice how all of the new shows have got homosexuals in them, transgenders in them. Okay, they're using it as a vehicle to push propaganda. Okay, and that's how we're so easily propagandized, because we're visual creatures. And so when we visually take in information, we're easily propagandized and socially engineered. So remove the TV. Stop interacting with people that are fully into politics, you know, listening to Joe Rogan. It's great to listen to all of these podcasts and they're telling you what you want to hear. They're just distracting you from the most important thing that you should be doing right now, and that is seeking out knowledge about who you are, about the truth. And this was all left to us by our ancient ancestors. The only reason I have any of the knowledge that I do is because I have gone back to all of the ancient texts and I have studied all of the ancient texts, and there is no agenda being pushed by the ancients. Why would they push an agenda? You know, I see people that want to demonize the ancient Egyptians, you know, and that is, again, another way of controlled opposition. Trying to demonize the ancients and say that they were evil, or they were, you know, sacrificing people, or they were worshipping Satan, or worshipping Lucifer, or Luciferian, or aliens. It's because they want to scare you away from that knowledge. there is no reason that the ancient Egyptians had any agenda in putting down their knowledge, or that the Hermetic texts have any agenda, or that the Gnostic Gospels, the Nag Hammadi Gospels, there's no agenda there. There's no agenda in the Kolbrin, okay? People that believe that there is an agenda, or that ancient texts are evil, are people who live in fear. People who have already decided on what they want their reality to be, and they want their reality to be what modern Christianity tells them it is, or what the New Age tell them it is. Because the only people that ever say to me that ancient texts and our ancient ancestors were evil and they were full of disinformation and you can't trust them are people who trust the modern clergy, or people who trust New Age gurus. So who is really putting their trust and their faith into those that cannot actually show any worthiness for their faith or trust? Because I can tell you, anyone with a donate button, anyone that's asking for a monetary exchange in, monetary reward in exchange for information, there should be a big red flag going off. Because right now, you should be holding the bar so high for people who you get information from that anything should be an excuse for you to distrust or view someone with suspicion. And so for me, that is asking for money with a donate button, or asking to buy a book, because I'm not saying that that person is necessarily going to be a disinformation agent, just because they've got a donate button, or because they've written a book. What I'm saying is that in a time where so much deceit is everywhere, where there is so much controlled opposition, so much disinformation being pushed on us, and you cannot trust anyone because the internet basically makes everybody, from behind a screen. You cannot tell face to face who people are. They could be showing you one thing, even if they're showing you their face on screen. They could just be creating this whole stage behind them that makes them look spiritual, a few pictures, a statue of Buddha, whatever. What I'm saying is that I have to have the bar set really high, because in this time of deceit, the only way that I can tell who has an agenda is if somebody wants something in return from me for giving me knowledge or information. And so if somebody wants a material reward from me, then I have to view them with suspicion based on that. Even if they may just be honest and they may just be deciding that they want, to be paid for collecting this information and knowledge. So that's all I'm saying. In these times, you need to hold the bar very, very high. Forget about having people in your immediate area that you can discuss this with, and you're going to have friends that you can all sit around and discuss this with. It's not going to happen. It's a lonely, lonely path, the hermit's path. It's called the hermit's path for a reason. So if you still need friends around you, if you still need people around you, then you're not the hermit yet. You're not there. You need to get yourself to a place where you're okay with being alone and walking that path alone, because you have faith in yourself and your own intellect, and in the journey and in the path that you've taken. That's the only way it can be. And really, the only place that you are going to connect with like-minded people, unless you're very, 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 very lucky, and there is very few of us that are very, 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 very lucky and that have somebody in their immediate circle that they can talk with this about. You're just going to have to, accept that it's only going to be on social media and the internet where we can connect together, which is one of the reasons that I still do these live streams, that I feel that we can still have a bit of a connection and I can answer you guys in live time, like that I'm actually talking to you as I was there with you, chatting to you, because it's not going to happen any other way. So don't look for that, okay? And don't expect that, because it's just going to be disappointment. All right, well, I am going to leave it here now, guys. So I hope I put out a lot of good information for you guys to go and research into further. As I said, all the links are down underneath, so you can go and look at that for yourself. Would be great if anybody is experiencing some anomalous activity in their immediate environment. post it in Shift of the Ages on the post that I'm going to create for that we can collate all of this information together in one place. And next live stream, I'm going to begin continue with the Gospel of Thomas. And let's continue interpreting those texts as well. But I did just feel it was important because there are so many changes, so many tangible changes happening now, that I really did just want to bring you all of this information so you guys can understand that there really are big changes happening around us, guys, and it's only going to escalate, and it's only going to force them to escalate their script and their subplots too. So we need to be ready for that. We need to ready our souls for what's coming. All right, well, have a great week, and I'm going to leave it here. And as always, peace out.